This is the most scariest holes in the world, which is known as the Mel's Hole, which is infamously known as the Devil's Hole. The reason why it got the name Devil's Hole is because anytime anyone would put a dead animal inside this hole, it seems like the animal would come back alive the next day. And this was actually tested by the guy named Mel, where apparently one of his neighbors put a dead dog inside this hole, and the next day the dog actually came back alive. And this is one of the most fascinating research that has ever been done so far in our history. And what's even more interesting is that Mel decided to drop a living goat all the way down inside this hole in order to see if the goat is going to be transforming into something else. And what came out of the hole is something that's going to leave you in absolute shock. Now, this is where the story got very interesting. Now, apparently, Mel bought this property in central Washington in the year 1997. And one day, Mel decided to take a look at his property and he found this massive hole that was leading to a complete abyss, which had no end at all. And a lot of his neighbors were using this hole in order to dump their trash, as well as dead cows and dead dogs and dead animals. And his neighbors were also warning Mel that they used to often see some sort of a black devilish beam that comes out of this hole every single month. And nobody had an idea on what this black beam of light is. So this basically fascinated Mel into discovering more about what's actually inside of this hole. So Mel had this fishing rod, which he basically used in order to put the fishing rod all the way down inside the hole. And then he found out that the hole was never ending at all. It was so deep that he ended up using all of his fishing lines. So then now he decided that he's going to go ahead and get a much bigger fishing line, which was 80,000 feet long, which is almost equal to 15 miles or 24 kilometers long of a fishing line. So one day Mel decided to tie a massive rock with his fishing line and he dropped it into the hole, and to his surprise, it seems like the hole was never ending at all. And even after completing the 80,000 feet long fishing line, he still wasn't able to find the other end of the hole. So this left a lot of people wondering that maybe this hole is not just like any other holes. Maybe this is something that's related to a portal that's going to lead us to a completely different dimension. Now, this is where things got interesting. A lot of people from Mel's neighborhood had already been using this hole as a dumpster, where they would usually dump all of their trash as well as dead animals like their farm cows, rabbits, sheep, and also most of the garbages. And there was this one special neighbor who claimed that he threw one of his dead dogs inside of this hole. And to his surprise, the next day, the dog that he threw inside the hole was back out alive. And the dog just came running out of the woods, and everybody in this town was absolutely shocked that this dog was dead and it was thrown into the hole, and the next day it's back out alive. Now, this is where all the strange things started happening, because the news caught the wind. A lot of people in the town started to learn about the mysteries of the Mel's Hole, and they started to get involved in the investigation in order to know what kind of a portal exists all the way deep inside the Mel's Hole. Now, when a lot of people learned that the dead dog was brought back alive after throwing into Mel's Hole, and this news became so viral that a Washington radio show named Coast to Coast AM started contacting Mel in order to interview him and find out more details about the mysteries of Mel's Hole. And when this happened, Mel obviously showed up in the radio show and he shared about all the secrets and all the discoveries that he had made regarding the Mel's Hole. And Mel also claimed that there used to be some sort of a very devilish black beam that just blasts out of this hole every week or every month or so, like that. And nobody even knew where this black beam, which kind of looked like a black colored flame, was just flashing out of the hole. And ever since the first time Mel shared about these details in the radio show, this basically caught a lot of attention from the government of the United States. And the next day, the US military showed up at Mel's property and they ended up seizing Mel's property. Now, this is where things got very interesting, because not everyone was ready to believe the story that Mel was talking about in the radio show, because some people said that it was just some sort of a conspiracy theory. But then when the military got involved and when the government sealed the property and were not allowing anybody to even enter the property, and this was 24 hours secured by the US military force, this basically led people to eventually think that the mysteries about the Mel's Hole could indeed turn out to be true. And what's interesting is that the US government even paid Mel a yearly lease amount of $5 million for Mel to basically give away this property to the government of the United States, so they could go ahead and run some research on everything that's going on in this property. And Mel basically had no other choice, so he had to give away this property in order for him to stay safe. So Mel decided to go ahead and take the $5 million per year offer, which is all the way back in 1997. And $5 million in 1997 is a massive amount of money. And if you calculate that to 2025, I think if you add on all the inflations and the market value of $5 million in 2025, it's easily going to be costing about $20 million a year. So that's how much the government basically paid Mel in order to shut up and never speak about this stuff and never come back to the town ever again. Now, Mel knew that there was something fishy going on with the property, so he decided to take up on the offer that the government was giving him, and he ended up leaving the town once and for all. So Mel was staying in New York for about 10 years now, and then it seems like Mel was basically missing his family, so he decided to go back to the town. But then obviously the government basically took a contract from Mel that he's never supposed to go back to the town or even speak about this information about what the hole actually is about. But then Mel decided that it's been 10 years, so obviously no one's going to be following me, or no one's probably going to keep a tab on me. So he decided to go back to his town, and this time he actually did. So he went back to his town in a bus, and this time the radio show that previously contacted Mel, that aired the first episode where Mel shared about the mysteries of the first hole that he found in his property, that same radio company was trying to get Mel back on another episode, because the last time they aired the show, it was a viral. A lot of people really loved what Mel had to share, and they basically wanted to do another episode or another podcast where they could reveal more information and more secrets about what's really going on with that hole. So this time Mel decided to let me just go ahead and give another interview to the same Coast to Coast AM show. It seems like someone from the neighboring town invited Mel over to their town because they also found a very similar hole, and it seems like they wanted Mel to give his insights on what this hole could eventually be, because this was a very similar story to what Mel had already discovered in his property. So Mel decided to go ahead and check out this hole, and apparently it seems like it was the very same hole that they found in another town, very similar to the hole that existed in his own property. So this hole was also shooting out this black flames every time, and nobody knew what these black flames were. And the last time one of Mel's neighbor threw a dead dog inside the hole, it came back alive. So this time they decided to tie a living sheep and drop it all the way down into the hole through a massive bucket. And they just kept going for about 20,000 feet, and then decided they should just rail it back up and see if they're going to be finding some sort of changes with the goat or not. And now when they pulled the rope back, what they found is actually super spooky, because when they pulled back the rope, it seems like the alive sheep was actually dead. But then this sheep was starting to look very unusual, because there seemed to be a lot of lumps that was formed in the sheep's body. So the veterinarian in that town decided to perform an autopsy to find out what could have caused all of these lumps to create in the sheep's bodies. And after they performed the autopsy, they noticed that the sheep's body started moving, and the sheep came back to life. And inside the sheep, they found this alive creature which is looking like a seal with massive round eyes, which kind of looked like a human face but then had a body of a seal. And this just left the entire town spooked out that there is something definitely crazy going on all the way beneath with the mystery of Mel's hole. So Mel decided that he should go ahead and share some of these investigations with the Coast to Coast AM radio show. And on the day that Mel was supposed to show up on the show, it seems like Mel just went missing. They tried to call him, there was no answers. They even tried to visit his home, and it seems like Mel was not available, and nobody ever heard from Mel ever again. And what's actually interesting about this stuff is that the people that were running the Coast to Coast radio show, they decided to go ahead and check out Mel's property, and it seems like for all these years the military has been working on shutting this hole down for some reason, and we don't know how they did it, but apparently it seems like they covered up this hole and they were unable to find the exact location of this hole, and they were unable to even find Mel as well. So now both Mel as well as the hole that was present in his property is completely missing, and nobody actually knows what happened to them. Now what's interesting about this discovery is that Mel's property was previously shown on the Google Earth as well as in Google Maps, but then it seems like the government took off Mel's property from being shown in the Google Earth as well as in Google Maps. So this definitely left a lot of people wondering if there is actually some sort of a weird mystery going on behind what they now call as the Devil's Hole. Now, after a few years, it seems like Mel's property was back online on Google Earth, and some people actually discovered this place, and the host at Coast to Coast radio show was talking about the stuff that they had already visited Mel's property, and there were a lot of signs that the military had somehow been working on some sort of a construction plan where they somehow seem to have filled up this hole, or at least they tried to cover up their tracks by filling up the top half of the hole so that nobody could ever find it again. Now, honestly, guys, this was one of the most mysterious things that we've ever seen so far, and apparently Mel's hole is still one of the most bizarre conspiracy theories that people are still researching about this thing, and no one has ever gotten any information out of it. And there was also like a TV show that was inspired from the story of Mel's hole, and I think the show was called Outer Range, and there were a few episodes that aired for this TV series, and very quickly the government shut the show down for whatever reason that is. We don't know. And there was also this podcast named Sunday Cool. They actually give us like a full insight on what actually happened to Mel's hole and what's the secret behind this whole situation, as well as we learn about the TV show that actually got canceled by the government. Take a look at this stuff.
Have you guys ever heard of Mel's hole? This is the wildest thing. So this dude named Mel, he bought this land in like central Washington in the 90s. He discovered there's a hole on his property, and like he's like, what's up with this hole, man? It's like I can't see the bottom of it. The guy's like, oh yeah, neighbors like since forever have just been throwing trash down it, and like we even throw like our dead cows down it and stuff. And so he had like a big rig set up for like shark fishing, and he had a spool of fishing line on it that reached 1,500 yards, right?
So first it was 1,500 yards before he tested out the 80,000 feet long fishing pool
to it and let it down. Didn't hit the bottom. So he bought more and more spools of fishing line. Each spool was 5,000 yards long. It equated to the amount that he bought was 80,000 feet long.
Wow.
What? Never touched the bottom.
Deepest points in the ocean, right?
Yeah. Which the Mariana Trench is 35,876 feet deep. He's like,
Mariana Trenches is 35,000 feet deep, and this dude literally got like 1,000 feet worth of fishing pool, and that's crazy. I don't know. I don't think you get these kind of things like ready-made. You need to like manufacture these things, like pre-order those things and then get them. It's like a very big process, so it definitely seems like Mel was really digging deep into the research of this thing to find out what's actually in there.
There's a lot of weird stuff about this hole. Dogs are afraid of this hole. Animals are afraid of this hole. And he said, in fact, one of my neighbors once told me that his dog died, and he threw the dog down the hole.
And then it came back alive.
The next morning, that dog was on his porch.
Oh my God.
What?
Like
alive.
Alive?
That's
so
crazy.
Mel made the joke. He said, when I die, throw me down that hole. He talked to another neighbor about this hole, and the neighbor's like, yeah, they're
black
there
thing.
used to be these stone pillars erected around this hole.
So, all right, I kind of guess where this thing is going. So if there were stone pillars, does this mean this was some sort of a ritual location?
Had reported seeing from this hole this black beam shoot from this hole, right? So a lot of weird stuff. Yeah.
That's crazy. So if there was like the stone pillars that was like located in this location before, this could be some sort of a witchcraft, sacrificial, pagan ritual spot. Because back in those times, if you remember how the Vikings used to, probably have these stone hedges, and they used to worship those pagan gods, and they used to do some human sacrifices, a lot of weird rituals back in those times. And these stone hedges, they kind of had this weird negative energy and power in that location. So anyone they wanted to do any sort of ritual or satanic worships, they would usually perform such activities in like the stone hedges. So now that we kind of figure out that there was some sort of a stone hedges in this location, this kind of just gives us a lot more information about the whole storyline. And this is the show I was talking about, which is called The Outer Range. Apparently the show just got canceled. It was aired in 2022. There's like 2 seasons of it already. If you want to watch it, it's available in Amazon Prime, where the entire show is basically based upon Mel's hole. So they kind of just did this whole discovery thing, they kind of dug into all the details, trying to figure out what is actually happening in that hole. Take a look at all of these images. Let me just zoom this out a little bit. Hold on. So you guys can take a clearer look at what's going on. There we go. So they probably just, tried to find out what's really going on in this location. And apparently they got to a point where, they were showing stuff about the black beam that kind of just emits out of this hole. And that's where the show got stopped. And a lot of people are saying that's because, the government is involved. They know what is in there and they don't want people to know about it. Maybe it's placed to another realm or whatever. I haven't seen the show myself. This is the guy that's supposed to play like the character's Mel, and he owns the farmland. They do some investigations and all that stuff. It's very inspired from the original story of Mel's Hole, basically. So it's a very interesting plot at the end of the day. I would strongly recommend all of you guys to go ahead, check this show out, watch it yourself so that you kind of get an insight on what's really going on behind the mystery of Mel's Hole. And hopefully we get some more investigations done. And some people are recently saying that, they kind of found where Mel's Hole exists. And if that's true, then that's actually pretty crazy, to be honest. And obviously, we'll see if we find any more discoveries regarding Mel's Hole. And if we do, that's actually great. This could end up being some sort of a portal that could lead us all the way to the other side of Earth. We never know. This could be something that the government is definitely trying to hide from us. Now, honestly, I would love to hear from you guys. What do you think about the mysteries of Mel's Hole? Leave your thoughts down below in the comments. It's going to be a very interesting one to see what you guys have to say and reply to you guys in the comments down below. Just take a few seconds of your valuable time, drop a like on this video. It really means a lot to me, and it also helps this video a lot more than you guys think. So thank you so much for your absolute support. If you guys want to see a continuation of what really happened to Mel's property, then I will of course be posting that video in this channel. So make sure to go ahead, subscribe for more conspiracy theories like these right here on my channel. Now with that being said, hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Until then, take it easy, fams, and goodbye.